Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So anyway, last night I came across an article by Scottish feminist journalist Vonny Moyes. And the article is called, "Let's Not Kid Ourselves That Stealthing is a Trend, It is Rape." So you may be asking what stealthing is. Well, stealthing is the act of taking off a condom during sex without your partner knowing. So I'm not going to go through the entire article, but there are two paragraphs which I really want to concentrate on. And then I want to have a quick look at the study which the article is supposedly about. So, let's get stuck into it.
Alexandra Brodsky, a fellow at the National Women's Law Center, recently published a study on stealthing in the Columbia Journal of Gender and Law after spending time in the online spaces where men encourage each other to do this. I asked her how she managed to stay calm during her research, and she hinted at the toll it had taken. Having spent a few days doing my own research, I can only imagine how difficult it was. This behavior isn't new as many headlines on the study suggest. It's been going on in the gay community for a long time, often in the guise of pausing, where some men will deliberately try to pass on or catch HIV, often through deliberate condom damage or removal. The practice has now made its way into the heterosexual community via the manosphere, where men's rights activists and men-going their own way followers see sexual entitlement to women as their right, and stealthing as a means of gratification and punishment. Brodsky notes in her study that those who stealth, regardless of sexual orientation, support an ideology of male supremacy in which violence is a man's natural right. Notably, this is not happening in the lesbian community. The constant is socialized masculine dominance, be it over women or over other men.
Okay, so we have a fair bit to break down here. Where to begin? Let's start with that last claim, that this isn't something we see in the lesbian community. I can imagine that lesbians wouldn't be sliding off condoms during sex. Because lesbians typically don't have penises, Vonny. Have you missed that part? Of course, Vonny doesn't mention that the rate of sexual violence within lesbian relationships is actually pretty fucking high. Percentage-wise, it's higher than in heterosexual relationships. You must have missed that part, Vonny. Is that about male dominance as well, Vonny, I wonder? Right? Of course not. It's probably somehow the patriarchy doing something to their brains or something, right? It's obviously not their fault, because violence isn't something that people do. No, it's something those nasty old men do, isn't it, Vonny? So the next claim I want to tackle from that article is that it's made its way into the heterosexual community via the manosphere, where men's rights activists and men going their own way followers see sexual entitlement to women as their right. I seem to have heard that somewhere before recently.
Because they are denying men their natural rights as men. Meaning, if only we could just have sex with whoever and whatever we want, whenever we want, then maybe we wouldn't have to rape you.
Of course, this is all bullshit, and it's also incredibly illogical. I mean, MRAs are talking about their partners tricking them into an unwanted pregnancy for decades now. It's a fairly major men's rights talking point. So it's illogical that we would then go around advocating for the stealthy removal of condoms during sex, so we can come in women that we don't want to impregnate. It's lunacy. It's illogical, and it shows that Vonny has done zero research into the men's rights movement. And it's equally crazy to say the same thing about MGTOW. I mean, many MGTOW don't want sexual relationships with women because they don't want unwanted pregnancies. And those who do still have sexual relationships with women are extremely cautious, to the extent of paranoia about not getting the other woman pregnant. This is something that feminists actually make fun of MRAs and MGTOW over.
Sperm jacking. Now you may well ask yourself, what the heck is sperm jacking? It's essentially the act of a woman stealing a man's baby gravy. Now this can come in many forms, if you'll pardon the pun. It can be as simple as a woman scooping up an otherwise deposited amount of ejaculate and manually inserting it into her own vagina, all the way through to a woman drugging a man, jerking him off and stealing his testicular essence. Now these obviously ludicrous scenarios that get painted as if they're everyday occurrences are almost told as anecdotes by the tinfoil hatted fool who happens to be whinging about them at any given time, because they very rarely have happened to the person themselves, because they very rarely happen at all.
Because, you know, women would never lie or trick men into unwanted pregnancies, would they?
So I've been married for 6 years, and me and my husband just had our first baby girl about 9 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So before we were married, he promised me we would have 2 kids, and now he doesn't want any more. My friends think I should trick him and stop taking my birth control. What do you think, Wendy?
I'm embarrassed to say this because I don't like spousal lying. However, men have never been in control of our bodies. We're the ones in control. I'm not going to suggest that you do that, but look into my eyes and tell me what I'm saying. Okay? He promised.
But in fairness, I guess we should actually look at some of the figures, right? To see what percentages of men and women try to coerce the other partner into a pregnancy, or slip off condoms, or, you know, whatever. Because the claim here, and the claim in the study, which we'll look at in a minute, is this is something that men do. This is something that those evil men do to dominate women and dominate other men. It actually says that. So let's have a look at the actual figures. And these figures come from the CDC. You know, that bias men's rights organisation, right? Anyway, this is what it says.
Prevalence of control of reproductive or sexual health by an intimate partner. Approximately 8.6% or an estimated 10.3 million of women in the United States reported ever having an intimate partner who tried to get them pregnant when they did not want to, or refused to use a condom, with 4.8% having had an intimate partner who tried to get them pregnant when they did not want to, and 6.7% having had an intimate partner who refused to wear a condom. Data not shown. Approximately 10.4% or an estimated 11.7 million of men in the United States reported ever having an intimate partner who tried to get pregnant when they did not want to or tried to stop them from using birth control, with 8.7% having had an intimate partner who tried to get pregnant when they did not want to or tried to stop them from using birth control, and 3.8% having had an intimate partner who refused to wear a condom. Data not shown.
So looking at the government figures, it's clear that men are more likely to be forced or tricked into an unwanted pregnancy than women are. Although, to be fair, the figures are very, very close. But that, of course, doesn't take into account little accidents, which aren't really little accidents. If your wife or girlfriend just happens to stop taking her birth control, you're unlikely to actually know that unless she admits it. And if your wife or girlfriend becomes pregnant, even though you've been using condoms, by the time you realise she's pregnant, I doubt you're going to go back and check the used condoms to see if there's any holes in them, right? Because, who keeps used condoms? So I figure that the percentage for men is actually a fair bit higher, but we don't know for sure. So just going by the government figures alone, it's a fucking hard case to say that this is male dominance over men and women, right? When it's behaviour which is done by both men and women, and slightly higher by women. But I was very curious to see what the study actually said, and I was curious about what citations of men's rights activists that it used. I thought it might be using pickup artists or something like that, although I wasn't sure. That is often the case, though. So I downloaded the study and I went through it. And the first thing I did was type in manosphere, and it showed no results. So then I tried MGTOW, and I got no results. I typed in men's rights, and I got no results. Now I found this strange, considering Vonny's article clearly mentions the manosphere, men's rights, and MGTOW. Yet the study that she is quoting from doesn't mention them anywhere. Now, the closest I could find to any mention of men's rights is this.
Online writers who practice or promote non-consensual condom removal root their actions in misogyny and investment in male sexual supremacy. While one can imagine a range of motivations for stealthers, increased physical pleasure, a thrill from degradation, online discussions suggest offenders and their defenders justify their actions as a natural male instinct and natural male right. One commenter on an article about stealthing wrote, "It's a man's instinct to shoot his load into a woman's pussy. He should never be denied that right. As a woman, it's my duty to spread my legs and let a man shoot his load into my wet pussy whenever he wants." Another defender, commenting on a blog post detailing one man's strategy for stealthing, explained, "Oh, I completely agree with this. To me, you can have one and not the other. If she wants the guy's cock, then she also has to take the guy's load." A further contributor on the thread asked whether the sexual partners of stealthers deserve to be impregnated. "Yes, they deserve it," another replied. "That's how God created this universe, we are born to do it," replied another, presumably referring to impregnation of women by men. "Yes," confirmed a third. "Men who stealth assault other men display similar rhetoric focused on a man's right to spread his seed, even when reproduction is not an option." On a website dedicated to giving men advice about removing condoms during sex with other men, the author presents a scenario in which a partner is on the lookout for the condom. So you've got a condom watcher. Someone who is monitoring too closely for a tip-off broken condom or to slip it off mid-fuck, he says. How are you going to breed? Again, a commenter ties non-consensual condom removal to a natural male instinct, in this case, to spread one's seed, even if the act cannot, in fact, result in pregnancy. Certainly, the role of gender in male-on-male sexual violence is far from resolved, as heated debate within feminist circles makes clear. Yet, without resolving the question around which that debate has swirled, in which precise ways sexual victimization of men is because of sex, one can note that proponents of stealthing root their support in an ideology of male supremacy in which violence is man's natural right.
So, it talks about a man's natural right to come inside a woman and male supremacy. Now, if you think that has anything to do with the men's rights movement, you are a fucking moron. I cannot stress that enough. If you think that is in any way connected to the men's rights movement, you are a fucking idiot. There is no two ways about that. Now, just in case someone's saying, "Hey, Bane, but maybe these comments were found on a men's rights forum or website or whatever," well, the next thing I did was I checked her citations. Now, she used 2 citations for the quotes that you saw, with the exception of the stuff she's talking about, the gay men. That's from a different thread. But I think it's safe to say that that's not to do with the men's rights movement. But the other quotations about straight sex, they come from 2 citations. Now, the first one is on the Experience Project, and in case you don't know what the Experience Project is, it's a website where anyone can basically post any experience or story that they want. It is in no way a men's rights site. It is not connected to the men's rights movement, although men's rights activists could use it, as could feminists. But it's no more a men's rights website than it is a feminist website, or an egalitarian website, or an atheist website, or a Christian website. Suggesting that this is in any way a men's rights forum or website would be like saying that Facebook is a men's rights website, because there might be MRAs who use it. I mean, it's idiotic. So her citation basically revolves around one comment or one post from 2012, and then a whole bunch of comments. I think there was 25 in total. And this seems to be where she's got most of her quotes from the comment section. But let's have a quick read of the first section of the post, just to see if there's anything about it which is in any way remotely connected to the men's rights movement, or MGTOW for that matter.
I removed the condom without them knowing during stealth sex. A comprehensive guide. My first experience I shared with this group was, she had no idea. Coincidentally, it was my first experience with stealth sex, and the rush I experienced was more intense than I can describe. It was not my first experience with barebacking or giving a cream pie though, but it easily exceeded the enjoyment I received from doing either one. I developed my own little tricks and techniques at achieving my main objective anytime I had sex, making sure I shot my load deep inside the girl's unsuspecting cunt. I became very good at what I did. It took some trial and error, but eventually I had full confidence that anytime I hooked up with someone, I knew my cum would end up inside her by the end of the night. I did this over and over with so many girls I can't even begin to count them. As stated in my previous story, I do not condone these actions. Was it right for me to do? No. Was it irresponsible and dangerous? Absolutely. However, I was 16 when I started doing this, and although I knew better, I was unable to resist. I'm also going to add that even today, whatever happens as a result from my actions, I will take responsibility. I am a man, not a boy, so I will take responsibility for my actions. All that said, here are my tips, tricks, and techniques to having a successful stealth sex experience.
Now, once again, let me stress, none of this has anything whatsoever to do with the men's rights movement or MGTOW. Now, an interesting thing I should point out before moving on to the second citation which is used, is that down the side of this thread it's got more people who remove the condom without them knowing during stealth sex. So clicking on that link, I actually found that there is, well, it's mainly males who are in this group, but there are actually females in there as well. Which the author of the paper just must have missed, right? Because this is something only men do, apparently, because it's all about male domination, right? So the second citation is for a website called iblastinside.com, which has been shut down, I'm guessing because of the articles which have popped up in the last week or so due to this paper. And the guy who ran the website is called Mark Benson, who's also shut down his Twitter account. Now, I Blast Inside really doesn't sound like a men's rights website to me. Yeah. But anyway, to be thorough, I did a search on the internet for Mark Benson, and men's rights and got no results. I also did a web search for Mark Benson and MRA, and once again, I got no results. So I think it's fairly safe to say that Mark Benson and his I Blast Inside website are not part of the men's rights movement. And that seems it for citations. Well, at least citations relating to men who do this. There are citations for phone interviews she did with female victims. And I did notice an interesting citation for this. I think it's probably good if we have a quick read of this.
Reproductive and sexual coercion involves behavior intended to maintain power and control in a relationship related to reproductive health by someone who is, was, or wishes to be involved in an intimate or dating relationship with an adult or adolescent. Reproductive coercion is related to behavior that interferes with contraception use and pregnancy. The most common forms of reproductive coercion include sabotage of contraceptive methods, pregnancy coercion, and pregnancy pressure. Birth control sabotage is active interference with a partner's contraceptive methods in an attempt to promote pregnancy. Examples include hiding, withholding, or destroying a partner's oral contraceptives. Breaking or poking holes in a condom on purpose or removing a condom during sex in an attempt to promote pregnancy. Not withdrawing when that was the agreed upon method of contraception. And removing vaginal rings, contraceptive patches, or intrauterine devices, IUDs. Pregnancy pressure involves behavior intended to pressure a female partner to become pregnant when she does not wish to become pregnant. Pregnancy coercion involves coercive behavior such as threats or acts of violence if a partner does not comply with the perpetrator's wishes regarding the decision to terminate or continue a pregnancy. Examples of pregnancy pressure and coercion include threatening to hurt a partner who does not agree to become pregnant, forcing a partner to carry a pregnancy to term against her wishes through threats or acts of violence, forcing a female partner to terminate a pregnancy when she does not want to, or injuring a female partner in a way that may cause a miscarriage. Homicide is a leading cause of pregnancy-associated mortality in the United States. In one study, the majority of pregnancy-associated homicides were committed by an intimate partner. 1/4 of adolescent females reported that their abusive male partners were trying to get them pregnant through interference with planned contraception, forcing the female partners to hide their contraceptive methods. In one study of family planning clinic patients, 15% of women experiencing physical violence also reported birth control sabotage. Among adolescent mothers on public assistance who experienced recent intimate partner violence, IPV, 66% experienced birth control sabotage by a dating partner. Compared with women not experiencing abuse, women experiencing physical abuse and women disclosing psychological abuse by an intimate partner had an increased risk of developing an STI. Based on this information, healthcare providers should include reproductive and sexual coercion and IPV as part of the differential diagnosis when patients are seen for pregnancy testing or STI testing, emergency contraception, or with unplanned pregnancies because intervention is critical.
So once again we have the model of the male perpetrator and the female victim with no mention whatsoever of the opposite happening where women might poke holes in condoms to get pregnant or anything like that, despite what the CDC figures actually say on the matter. Now you could argue that the perspective of this website is because it is about women's health, so maybe for that reason it's only representing half the argument, half the case. Fair enough. But what about the study that cites it as a source? Now the study has come to the conclusion that this is male dominance. It's something men do to women and other men, and it's not something that women do in any way. And it's using this as a citation. And effectively, it's deleted half the data. It's deleted male victims and female perpetrators. And then concluded that it's something men do to women because patriarchy, female oppression, etc., etc. I mean, can you get more fucking dishonest than this? Now, for the record, let me be fucking crystal clear here. anyone who pokes holes in condoms or purposely slips off condoms or lies about being on birth control or whatever, deceives their sexual partner in any way like that, they're a fucking scumbag. Especially if you're doing it to try to get pregnant or to get someone pregnant. Now, I don't care if you're a male or a female doing this, and I don't care if your partner is a male or a female. The point is, it's fucking wrong. It's not wrong just when men do it to women. It's wrong regardless of who does it to who. Now, this is something that men's rights activists have been saying all along. And Vonny would know this if she actually did any research into the men's rights movement. So let's recap what we have so far. We have a study from a biased feminist academic who goes to 2 sites which are non-men's rights related. She also asks female victims, but she neglects to even consider for an instance that there might be female perpetrators who are doing this, and that there might be male victims from those female perpetrators. It doesn't cross her mind, or if it does cross her mind, she just fucking ignored it as if it doesn't exist. And then she concludes that this is all part of male supremacy and the desire to humiliate and degrade and oppress women, etc., etc. I mean, what a load of fucking bullshit. Bias fucking bullshit. But to her credit, she doesn't anywhere in the paper refer to this as being part of the manosphere, men's rights activists, or MGTOW. So, how then did Vonny come to the conclusion that it's the manosphere, men's rights activists, and MGTOW which are spreading this across the internet, considering the paper said nothing like that? Well, I see 2 possible solutions to that question. Judging by Vonny's article, it's clear that she spoke to the author of the paper, so maybe the author of the paper did mention the manosphere, men's rights activists, and MGTOW when they were talking. I find this unlikely, though, because, like I pointed out, the author of the paper at no point mentioned the manosphere, men's rights, or MGTOW, which would be strange that she wouldn't mention these in her paper, but then would mention them in an interview with Vonny. It's also a little strange that Vonny doesn't have quotation marks around these claims, so we know it's not a quote from the author of the paper. And there are many articles on this paper on the internet at the moment, and as far as I can tell, the only one claiming that it's the manosphere, men's rights, and MGTOW spreading this stuff is the article by Vonny. So, if the author did make that claim, she has only made that claim to Vonny, which, once again, is a little bit strange. So, I don't think option 1 is all that believable. However, we do have option 2. And option 2 is Vonny just made the shit up. She just assumed, for whatever reason, that the author must have been talking about the manosphere, men's rights, and MGTOW. Or she purposely lied about it. Either way, though, she just came to that conclusion by herself and made the shit up. She basically invented facts. She lied to her audience. There's a possibility that this was done out of pure fucking ignorance, which is a very real possibility considering she's probably living in an echo chamber and has never talked to an MRA or someone who's MGTOW. And her entire impression or stereotype is built on lies and misinformation about us. Of course, the other possibility is she knew exactly what she was doing and purposely misrepresented the study and just lied at her fucking ass. Now, when I saw this last night, I posted it on Twitter, and Danny Boy saw it, and he actually sent her a tweet last night asking for her to give some citations or to say where she got this information from. And I also sent her a tweet this morning, and at the time of recording, I am yet to be blocked or receive a reply. I'm not holding my breath that I'm going to actually get a reply. At least, probably not a pleasant one if I do get one. But who knows? Maybe she is open to discussion. Based on the article, though, probably not. And the thing is, the fucking study is bad enough without then lying and misrepresenting it to make it fucking worse. For fuck's sake. Now, I can understand journalists making mistakes occasionally. Of course, they should take every step possible not to make mistakes, but I can understand journalists making mistakes because, they can't be expected to be experts on everything. And I could understand her saying this if it was an opinion piece, which it's not. But when someone presents something like this as fact, when it fucking isn't, it's something which is purely an invention of her own imagination, that person should not be a journalist. They should lose their job. End of fucking story. So about 2 weeks ago, I came across something very, very interesting on the internet, and I was intending to make a standalone video about it. It was only going to be a short video, about 5 minutes long or something like that. But considering the topic of the video you've just watched, I think it fits in perfectly right here. And like I said, it won't take much time to discuss. You see, later this year there is going to be a conference on men's reproductive rights. Now that might sound like a good thing, but wait until we look at the actual details of this. First of all, it's called Women's Conference on Men's Reproductive Rights. And looking at their Twitter page, they are most definitely feminist. So it says, "Welcome, what is it?" It's a conference of female panelists, speakers and performers exploring, we'll get to the 4 points in a minute, but it's only females talking about men's reproductive rights. That's interesting. Now, could you imagine for a second there was a conference to talk about abortion rights, and only men were sitting on the panel talking about a woman's right to have an abortion? Do you think that would be fair? Do you think that would be reasonable? What if they had a conference about the issues affecting the African American community in America, and they only invited white people to sit on the panels and talk about these issues? Do you think that would be fair and reasonable? Do you think maybe if you're going to have a conference about an issue that affects a group of people, that maybe you should invite that group of people to take part in it and express their opinions and talk about their experiences? Apparently not. Apparently not if you're a male. Apparently it doesn't matter. Your opinion or experiences don't count, because these feminist women are there to talk about our issues and, to tell us what's right and wrong. No doubt it will all boil down to toxic masculinity or some such bullshit. So the first thing that they're exploring is, what reproductive rights do men have? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have an issue with that one. Of course, it depends on how they talk about that question, but the question by itself, I don't have an issue with it. The second one, however, is, what reproductive rights should men be allowed to have? It's interesting that they would use the word allowed. A group of women, no men, discussing an issue that affects men and deciding amongst themselves what we should be allowed to have. Not what we should have, not what rights we deserve, but what rights we should be allowed to have. Once again, imagine a group of men organising a conference about abortion rights, and discussing what rights to an abortion women should be allowed to have. Could you imagine the feminist outcry over that? So the third point is the question of male circumcision. Now, once again, I got no problem with that topic being discussed. I have to wonder how it's going to be discussed, but the topic in itself, no issue. Now, there is a fourth point. I'm going to save that till last. But before we get to that, let's have a look at the other information that's there. And there isn't much information, to be fair. So it's going to be held December 14th to 15th, 2017, which I think is around the time the new Star Wars movie comes out. So, you know, great timing. It's in San Francisco. Big surprise. Location to be announced and speakers to be announced. Wouldn't it be great if Karen went? Is there any way we could pull that off? I doubt they would let her in the building. But it would be good to have at least one MRA presenting men's side of the argument. So just to finish off, let's have a look at this fourth point, and I think this really demonstrates their true motivation for holding this conference. And the fourth point is the dismantling of the men's rights movement. And of course, talking marks around men's rights. Why am I not surprised? So you'll note that this is the first annual conference that they're holding. So in the last 40 or 50 years, feminists have not given two shits about men's reproductive rights. Well, most feminists. The vast majority of feminists. And they've never held a conference to discuss men's reproductive rights before. Yet all of a sudden, they're holding a conference to discuss these important issues, but not inviting any men to speak. And they're going to use it as a platform to attack the men's rights movement. This tells me that they're fucking terrified of losing control of the narrative. This, to me, looks like a desperate attempt to try to somehow regain control of the gender discussion. This tells me that they're fucking losing the battle, despite the fact that they outnumber us, despite the fact they have influence in the government, universities and the media, and have vastly more money than we have. This tells me that we're gaining more and more ground all the fucking time. This is an act of desperation on their part, and I can't wait to see it explode in their faces. So just an update on the tweets that Danny Boy and myself sent Vonny. As of yet, we have not received any reply, nor have we been blocked, or at least I haven't been blocked, and I don't think Danny Boy has either. But an interesting little side note, yesterday Vonny did post this. Now, I don't think this is aimed at me specifically, but I do find it incredibly ironic and funny.